wanted to make sure that we could get out and have an emergency protest since Israel has ended the ceasefire and has continued its genocidal assault on Palestine. We needed to make sure that we got out in the streets and protested it.
Israel's unilaterally ended the Gaza ceasefire, launching a massive wave of airstrikes overnight that killed at least 404 people and wounded more than 560 others, numbers that are expected to rise with scores of victims still trapped in the rubble.
So my name is Cameron Stringfield. I'm with the Party for Socialism and Liberation here in Eugene. And we, of course, went ahead and organized this within just the last day. And we're really glad that all of you could make it and show up. The U.S. and Israel are resuming genocide. Late Monday night, without warning, Israel resumed their genocidal war on Gaza, with heavy airstrikes targeting homes, schools, tents, and shelters across Gaza, murdering already over 400 Palestinians and injuring hundreds more.
Shame!
Shame! We are answering the call from the Palestinian youth movement to take to the streets across the entire country, demanding an end to the siege on Gaza and an arms embargo now. This renewed violence by Israel clearly signals an end to the ceasefire agreement, which never got past its initial phase, and which Israel violated from the start. We can remember that that Israel violated this ceasefire agreement multiple times. The Palestinian ambassador to the United Nations stated that Israel breached the ceasefire agreement at least 962 times, almost 1,000 times during its initial phase, averaging around 23 violations daily. That's not much of a ceasefire. Among these breaches were the deaths of at least 116 Palestinian civilians, many of whom were children, and the injury of at least 490 others. Additionally, Israel failed to comply with the ceasefire terms by refusing to withdraw its forces from Gaza from the start. This continued occupation of Palestinian land by the Zionists has now led back to the intensified genocide we were seeing every day from October of 2023 to just 2 short months ago. This also follows horrendous proposals by the Trump administration, overtly endorsing ethnic cleansing in Gaza and offering for the United States to occupy the Gaza Strip and move Palestinians to Sudan, Somalia, and Syria, all of which are experiencing their own violent conflicts and genocides caused by our imperial and colonial violence. The Trump administration, the billionaires, and most of Congress have proudly supported the genocide in Gaza. Being Zionist is actually very bipartisan, as it would seem. After all, the genocide didn't start under Trump. It was bankrolled for months by Biden and the Democrats. Both parties have totally pledged their allegiance to Israel. The Trump administration was even consulted prior to Israel's new attacks. He has previously said all hell will break loose in Gaza if all hostages weren't surrendered. Now it is clear that our government will continue to support the slaughter of thousands of innocent men, women, and children to further the interests of the U.S. and Israel and line the pockets of the billionaire class. This is happening at a time when the Trump administration is recklessly waging war abroad, from hitting Sana'a, the capital of Yemen, with airstrikes that killed over 50 and injured nearly 100 just for Yemen standing up for Palestinians against the Zionists in Israel, to directing the military to draw up plans for an imminent invasion of Panama to seize the Panama Canal, which would mark a major escalation in Central America and ultimately result in the same migration that he is scapegoating and targeting with deportation and violence. Trump, as we can see, is not anti-war in the least. He is actually being more openly hawkish than any of his predecessors, vocally threatening outright invasions, annexations, ethnic cleansing, and more all over the globe, while supporting the most far-right, racist, fascistic forces worldwide. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is waging war at home. The illegal abductions of Mahmoud Khalil and now Laka Korda by ICE are a declaration of war by the Trump administration on one of our most fundamental rights, the freedom of speech. By targeting Mahmoud and Laka, they are targeting everyone who has taken part in the massive grassroots movement for Palestine. Millions of people all around the world have taken to the streets since Israel's genocide against Gaza began. That includes thousands of folks here in Eugene who have protested for well over a year, outraged that our tax dollars are being used to massacre tens of thousands of innocent people, while working class Americans suffer here in our own community, as we see with the rise of homelessness and housing insecurity and healthcare insecurity. This people's movement terrifies the politicians and the war makers, and they want to shut us down. But we will never stop taking a stand for Palestine. We will shut them down, their imperialist war machine, and we will not stop. Protesting genocide is not a crime. Raising your voice, marching in these streets, setting up an encampment is not criminal. The real criminals are leaders of Israel and the U.S. war machine, and this is something that's recognized around the world. If Trump can get away with this massive violation of Mahmoud and Laka's rights, then who's next? Will he decide that union organizers speaking out against corporate greed are criminals? Will he say that people protesting to save the environment are terrorists? This is the decisive moment when we need to take a stand before it's too late. If you value your right to disagree with the government and protest the unjust actions of politicians, then Mahmoud's fight is your fight.
That's right.
And I'll go ahead and give it to our next speaker, which is Thea.
Hello, my name is Fia. I'm an SJP organizer and an undergraduate at University of Oregon. My grandma is Palestinian from Jerusalem, Al-Quds. I want to tell you a little bit about my friend Tala, who lives in Gaza City. When I saw that Israel had unilaterally ended the ceasefire and began bombing again, particularly in Gaza City, I texted her and asked her how she was, to check in on her family. She's got a niece with a cleft palate that they've been trying to raise money for so that she can get the aid that she needs that isn't available in Gaza. And as horrible as the situation is there, she still finds a way to see how lucky she is. In the city, there aren't occupation soldiers as much as there is the worry of starvation or freezing. So when I texted her about this latest siege, and she told me that she had lost her aunt and her aunt's entire family in the bombing overnight, I didn't know what to say, knowing that it was our administration that likely gave the go-ahead for this massacre, that hundreds had died, mostly children. I didn't know what else to do other than to text my friends that are organizing this and ask if I could bring her story to you all so that we could all have her in our thoughts. And when I asked her if there was anything that she wanted me to say for you all, she gave me a poem that I hopefully will be able to send to PSL, but I don't have it on me. If you want to read it, you you can go to We Are Not Numbers. Her name is Paula Hizala, and she is a beautiful poet, and I really recommend you guys go and read her work. Thank you.
I guess we'll go to our next speaker now, which should be Rob from the PSL.
Yeah.
Test. Oh, that was great. Thanks everyone for coming on such short notice. I know that none of us want to be here today, but we all saw what was happening yesterday, last night, and we knew that we needed to show up and reassert that the movement for Palestine is alive and is not going anywhere until Palestine is free.
Yeah.
So there were some at the beginning of the Trump administration that thought the Trump administration would be a bringer of peace. Not me. Is the Trump administration bringing us peace?
No.
War in Gaza. He's pulling out of Ukraine. Why? To go to war with China. War is what feeds the U.S. empire, feeds this machine. There's no chance they're going to give it up unless we make them give it up.
That's right.
Does Donald Trump care about human rights?
No.
Do the billionaires care about slaughtered children?
No.
Do they care about our children?
No.
There's an unmistakable uniqueness to this version of this extreme right version of the billionaire agenda. It's definitely unique in the current moment. There are through lines, but they're actually actively trying to change the form of government that we have. Some would say that's from democracy to something else. I think most of us know that's not it. But they're trying to change the form of government that we have. They're trying to roll back our civil rights, our social rights, to before the 1960s, to before the 1930s. They are unique in a way than democratic, the way the Democratic Party rules, and that they do it with the mask off. They say we want to turn Gaza into a series of resorts instead of just going about their business quietly and saying, well, terrorists, human rights, etc. They say that they want to, other things. They say they don't do away with this human rights language, this democracy language. It's the mask off. He's too lazy and arrogant to do those things. But none of these lies can withstand Gaza. The Democratic Party will claim that they're for women's rights, they're for LGBTQ rights, they're for the climate more than them. But they won't even claim that they're for Palestine. They cannot. Gaza exposes the lies. When Mahmoud Khalidi was arrested by ICE, taken to Louisiana, some congressional Democrats circulated a letter saying we condemn this. There were 14 signatories to that letter. Gaza exposes the lies. Gaza is where the lies go to die. So Donald Trump is many things, including a liar. But he's also lazy and arrogant. He's too lazy to pretend that the U.S. war machine is about human rights. He's too lazy to pretend that it's about democracy. Cameron mentioned those cases at Columbia University of students who were abducted by ICE and taken. Here in Eugene, we have a liberal institution of our own. And we had students of our own exercising their right to free speech in the encampment in the spring. And the institution, the U of O administration, is, I would say, probably as arrogant as Donald Trump, but not as lazy. Not quite as lazy. So they came after students speaking out for Palestine with the threat of expulsion, with the threat of suspension. If you're an international student at the University of Oregon and you're threatened with expulsion, they're threatening you with deportation as well. They're using the border as a weapon
as well, even if they are not doing it with the same mask off that Donald Trump and his administration uses. And they're still going after our students at the University of Oregon. Gaza exposes all of the lies. It exposes the lies of the liberal institutions as well as the conservative institutions. It exposes the lies of U.S. imperialism because they can't even bring themselves to lie and say, we believe in human rights for Palestinians. That's, for us here in the United States, that's why the issue of Gaza can never go away. The issue of Palestine can never go away. It is the primary exposer of these liberal institutions and of their lies. Free Palestine! Give it back to Cameron.
Yeah.
All right. We'll go ahead and go to our next speaker, Shakar.
Hi everybody, my name is Shakar. I'm grateful to be here, and I'm a poet, and I'll read you a few poems. The first one's called The Genocide Rages On. Crushed babies, dogs with rabies, scavengers among the rubble, too grotesque to describe. How many bribes did it take to flatten Gaza? How does the stench of death feel in a mother's nose? Are her cries too piercing to hear? What's not clear? And as she mourns her son who picked up a rifle to defend her tears, what's not clear? Becomes destined to be the source of her pride and agony. Extermination nation, genocide across the countryside. Bear witness, seethe in the open air, my dears, for their grotesque fear is our unity in guillotines, our understanding that nothing justifies the wholesale slaughter of babies, that there is a price paid sooner than later, buried now. How many more? Beneath the resistance, feeding resilience and rage, beyond age, late-stage cannibalism. I saw Hind Rajab in a world of demons, of buffoons and butchery, bloated bodies, alive and unalive, hive mind. Where is our spear? Where our scales of justice? Where our love for all? But we are standing under the empire. Don't worry who's sticking their bones in the wheels. Throw your weight into dismantling this tormenting tyranny of oppression, because this shit ain't over. Organize while you eulogize. Eulogize while you organize. These are our choices and our voices of defiance, kicking dirt into the eyes of empire, are a balm to the brutality. You didn't think it'd stay on this side of the Atlantic. It's coming home. And I'm scared shitless for all the babies, because I've seen what they're capable of, my love. We must kiss our darlings non-stop, for it has to be love that binds us together, not history nor teardrops. The thing Zionists covet, sincere warmth, empathy, a determination to face reality, to pick away at the walls, the shrapnel, the pain, and fill it with gauze and samud. Thank you. Woo! This one I wrote in honor of Mahmoud Khalil, but I really wrote it in honor of all of us and of all those standing against oppression. I have no words, but somehow I must conjure the ghosts of past revolutions, of martyrs blessed, that I am not alone, that we are not alone, that history shows solidarity is never a lost battle, never a wasted breath. What is displacement? What is death? What is courage in the face of a fascist state? What are we but the masses seething for justice? Not just for you, Mahmoud. We have not forgotten the flame of Hind Rajab, nor the spear of Sinwar, nor that Palestinian youth who beat his bloody chest and proclaimed for all the world to hear. We are the champions. We are Gaza. Gaza is this small, and the world cannot defeat it. Dear Mahmoud, hunted by fascists your whole life, an accidental freedom fighter, I wish the world were not so cruel and racists so powerful and so utterly depraved and weak. I wish you didn't have to leave your beloved Syria. But when, dealing with the dregs of humanity, we find ourselves fighting for justice against ICE, against Zionist cowards who hide behind bureaucracy and corrupt laws, we must stand tall. We must be counted and be bold. For if truth be told, what's to stop ICE from tearing through our community, snatching up our comrades? What's to stop them from snatching you or me? One word: unity. Let that word be our shield. The power you yield with it can change worlds, can free the bludgeoning prisons, can smash the fascist state and its heartless lackeys. Remember, the fight to dismantle Zionism has been raging for more than 70 years, and we may not see its demise with our eyes. But the struggle to liberate Turtle Island and Palestine carries on like a tornado that silently gathers force. May we perceive the gravity of this moment and gather courage from one another. Bring Mahmoud Khalil home to be with his dear pregnant wife. From the river to the sea,
Palestine will be free.
and when they come for us, don't film it. Burn for justice. Remember, Hind was shot 364 times. Remember the tortured doctors and babies left to die in unplugged incubators. Burn for this nightmare to end. To free your friend who spoke truth to power, who chose not to cower in fear, not to hide or disappear, not to despair, but with his whole chest to care against a grotesque foe who has no low, a depraved goon whose demise cannot come too soon. So when the anvil of injustice smashes through our town, grab a brick, don't take a pick, and throw it at the prisons, where all prisoners are political. Free Mahmoud Khalil! Free Mahmoud Khalil! Free them all! Free them all! Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to our next speaker, which I believe is Emily from GTFF. So come on up.
My name's Emily. I use they, them pronouns. I'm with the GTFF, which is well, I won't give you the whole acronym. We're just the Graduate Labor Union at the University of Oregon. I came up here because I've learned over the last few years organizing with my union how important it is to have like an actionable group that can help you connect these struggles to something more and feel like you're building something and not just reacting. And recently, a couple of organizers from my union, we've come together and we've started to work together to reconnect the labor community here in Eugene. And this feels like a really important project right now. One, because labor unions are an already existing body that we can use to struggle against oppression, and can use our resources and our tactics that we have to fight back. I'll also say, Rob mentioned that student organizers on campus have been targeted by our administration for protests, but the same goes for our labor leaders. And GTFF's president just recently announced that filed an unfair labor practice against the university administration because they are trying to punish labor leaders for speaking out in favor of free speech. Our unions are a key place where we can organize and where we can actually produce the worlds that we want to see, and where we can productively work for that and not just react against things that frustrate us and make us feel frozen in fear and confusion and just pure overwhelm. And again, I say all of this because I mentioned me and a few of my fellow organizers from GTFF are trying to connect other labor unions together because our existing bodies are very separate. They don't talk to each other. We don't often work together. On campus, we have a lucky system because we're all there together. So we tend to work together with our unions on campus. And I see U.S. student worker members, I see SEIU members, and other GTFFers, which is all wonderful to see. But I want us to get connected in the community as well. So I know many faces here, but I also don't know probably more than half of you. So if you're interested in coming to a labor strategy meeting to talk about how to get the Eugene labor community connected and active again, beyond the struggle for Palestine, but connecting the struggles to protect immigrants and international students and international workers, and to connect the fight for queer rights and trans rights and all of these other struggles that we're involved in. Please come and talk to me. We've got some meetings scheduled at the end of this month and the first week of April, and I would love to have you there. I'm particularly looking at people who are not necessarily labor leaders in their union, because one, we always need more rank and filers to come and help us out, not just because you sometimes have less on your plate, but also because this movement is about building people into the leaders that we want to see. So yes, if you want to be involved in this, please come talk to me. Even if you're not a union member, I would love to get in touch with you. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily. The main thing I want to say is that we are right now in a moment where it is for sure that people are going to mobilize again. It was a big moment for the last over a year, since October of 2023, when people were taking the streets for months for Palestine. I foresee that people are going to want to do that again. So please, get involved with some sort of organization or some sort of group. Plug in to the different organizations here and the different struggles that are going on, not just for Palestine, but understand that there's multiple imminent wars and military interventions that we'll have to deal with. There are multiple labor struggles going on that we should be involved in. Our immigrant neighbors need to be defended, and we are active in that work, trying to make sure that ICE does not deport our immigrant neighbors. Just lastly, I want to say, if you're involved in an organization, if you do work in an organization, for the love of God, do something. Get out there. Protest the genocide. This genocide is something that is not going to stop unless we are out there letting the imperialists know that we're not going to take it. We're not just going to let them keep going and bombing thousands of Palestinians or Yemeni people, or to go and start doing that in Panama, or to just annex Greenland, etc. They're not going to deport our neighbors. They're not going to abuse us with their police forces. We're not going to take it. So please, get involved. Plug in. Free Palestine.